I do want to clip. Did you bring your large sheet over? Oh.
Thank you, Bill.
Or you just you can do it from here.
We don't identify as Melbourne anymore.
That is true. Whoever you are. Please come on, east, west, come on up. And talk us through this so that we can pick it apart. Encourage you.
Jerry, you're a good spokesperson. I think,
Okay.
Emily, go ahead. This is your show.
oh, I'm up.
Oh,
What are we doing?
See that?
we can read. Just tell us what's behind it. And take us through it.
I got nothing. So we're looking at what's going to create a sense of urgency. You know, everyone knows there's a homeless issue, but what's going to create a sense of urgency? So we want to make it personal. We want to be able to tell stories, you know, individual stories that will, you know, put a face and put something behind it. You know, give it that human factor. But we also want to have those compelling stats, such as rents have increased 300% in the last year. You know, we want to build that story of here's this person who could be your mother, could be your kid, could be, you know, anyone that you know, someone who you know and love. And here's what's happening to them. They can no longer afford to live. They can no longer afford rent. And then here's the thing. There's a big resource gap. This problem has gotten to the point where we can no longer, you know, help and support these people short term. This is a long-term problem that you know, people are they're just suffering. Children are going into special programs in schools now because there's special programs in schools because there's so many homeless kids who are going to your local schools and talk about some of the how women and children are vulnerable to different exploitation or crimes. And so we want to go into that, creating that sense of urgency that people who you can relate to are suffering and struggling, and we can't ignore this any longer. It's only going to get worse.
And Emily, we're also highlighting the fact that these are not just people. Most people think of the homeless as those who don't want to work. We're talking about the working poor. We're talking about that mother with 3 kids who gets up every day and goes to work. Even if we increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, do the math. Can she afford an apartment? No, she can't. So where does she live? She lives in a car. But she sends her kids off to school every day, and you know, so forth. So part of the appeal is help us get 200 people off the streets in the next year.
Well,
It's quantified. It's a size.
Yes.
But if you say all homeless is too big.
Yeah.
Well, when the moratorium on when that time comes on rent assistance and people being thrown out, that this is going to be an overwhelming problem all over the country. Even people who've never thought about this before. It's a tsunami unless something is done. It's just incredible.
Or in the last 3 years in Boulevard, the temperature has dropped to 30 degrees. We've had people that have died in the last couple of years, homeless people. What will happen to this young mother with her 3 kids come January? We need to do something now.
Wow, I got convinced.
Okay, so run us through these other 2.
So we're looking at our champions. The first champions we're going to go to are other organizations who are already working in this area, so we can bring them all together. The leaders on that list that we did earlier, we want to look to them as champions. But our team are the first champions for this. Our team are going to be champions first to be able to try to recruit other champions. And then resources, we're looking at some of this kind of wish list of resources. Brevard County is a wealth of knowledge. We have lots of engineers and really smart people in
Yeah.
our county. So we're looking at, we've got a lot of brain power to be able to put behind this, which is one of our
Is that an
resources.
organization for Barnes Desire?
No. But that's a great name, I think that could. No, but we're looking at, we want to build a desire of our county to continue to have just a wonderful county.
There's an existing desire to help.
Yes.
And that's, and
It's
that's,
part of your culture.
Yeah. Yeah, in
That's
fact,
good.
we could even link it with the Keep of Our Beautiful campaign.
yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then,
You know, I really like that notion of a name for Barnes Desire.
that is a good
You
name.
know, it's not bad.
Good job, Cindy.
Or-
So we also want to explore getting into to grants, see what money is already available. And we also want to look at the wealth that's within our community. We want to look at, where are there people who want to donate land or other kinds of resources, nonprofits. So we're trying to look at all those different parts and pieces.
But what we also want to say is that we are not here to recreate the wheel. Those organizations that are already doing it, we want to work with them, we want to take their training, but we recognize that they will be they are taxed, especially now, and cold nights and so freeze nights, they're taxed. So we have to do something now to make sure, working with them, under their guidance even, to deal with the issue that we are trying to address right now, these mother and children.
Because there are multiple, like Glenn said earlier, there are just multiple facets to the whole homelessness. And just like literacy, there are like 5 streams that feed early child literacy. Which one of those do you want to, or do you want to get them all? Or you want to, so there's a little, some further stuff to do. Your group, take a look. In fact, last time at our first gathering, we brought via Zoom Larry James from Dallas, and it's called City Center.
Square.
City Square. And homelessness is their path. And Larry, they've helped over 2,000 people out of homelessness. And I'm sorry, I was going to let the other team ask you questions.
Oh, okay.
But, okay, all right. So I'll thank you when you're through.
In other words, you're not done yet.
I decided, I don't know why you think you can just step in here and
She
take over
was
this.
walking out. I thought she deserved a little gratitude.
Leave
You have tiny,
That's who my friend is.
Exactly.
we want people because they have fire and blood. That's the Salvation Army, for those of you who are not.
Yeah.
All right, so Larry, I took a group to see his deal in City Square, and he said, we've discovered that the cure for homelessness is to give people a home. I mean, now what kind of thinking is that? This is crazy. This is adaptive leadership versus technical leadership. Because the government's answer to homeless is going to hose people down with a cot and food and keep them homeless, but move them on, it's a process. But I mean, over 2,000 people. And the last, I was there when he opened his last community. It was 50 tiny homes, all on trailers. And with the city of Dallas paying for most of it, because it's cheaper to build those than to deal with homeless folks on the street. That's one of your stats. How much does it cost per person? If people really knew, what does it cost per person to deal with homeless folks? The way we're dealing with them now, I mean, you can pay a lot of rent. You can do a lot of stuff. Anyway, by the way, this particular community it was gated, but not like you think. It's gated to keep people in, not out. But I mean, because you had to answer 2 questions. Do you have a drug problem? Yes. Have you been to prison? Yes. You're our kind of person. And so, the homeowners association is kind of made up of a different crowd. The rules were different. But what Larry knows is that just like with any addiction, the number one correlative to helping people through addiction is a supportive community. You know, even when they fail and go back, it's 3 years of, typically minimal, 3 years of supportive community, so that people, so he's put these homes, these little tiny homes, and he moved this city overnight. I mean, they're all in trailers. You know, but they're arranged so to create community. So someone out on their local, I mean, it's remarkable. So all I'm saying is that might be a resource. Take a look at that, you know, because you can learn a lot from just how they handle and they're being adaptive, not just technical leadership, not just tweaking it, but literally a new model.
We also have a big recreational vehicle place in Melbourne. Maybe we can see that getting in on the used market on that or something.
And I mean, we've got to do something different. We just can't, we can't handle it the way we're handling it. And the mental health issues that it's causing, not just that it's, you know, there are a lot of studies, of course, that are linked to mental health, that homelessness itself causes mental illness.
So HOAs are just a standard part of so many of our lives. And the lady in Arizona,
Yeah.
what's her name?
Tracy.
Tracy mentioned that was one of the players that brought to the table with the schools, I guess. And it's an interesting name because it's just the polar opposite of homelessness is a homeowner. So I'm just wondering if we could get some traction and find a champion or resources in the homeowners associations that are just prolific. They're all over Florida. And have you ever heard of anybody marshaling that
No.
thing? Because all we do is think about ourselves, and if our pool is kept up, you know,
Yeah.
or the grounds are mowed or something, but there could be like a conscience for the ones that have nothing that we have.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting. And by the way, did you say keep Brevard beautiful? Was that the?
Yeah.
See, I think,
Campaign.
honestly, you could, the multiple dimensions of that, it's said about desire, I don't know, but I mean, that sounds like a nightclub. I can see a billboard with that, but it doesn't look like what you're thinking. But keep Brevard beautiful may be a phrase that you could, here's how beautiful people have a place to live. People have, you know, food to eat. People have, I mean, you just fill that in with people, not just keep it litter free. Let's have beautiful people. All right, I can't take any more from east, west. And I'm terrified of the next group that I can read. So introduce yourself, please, by your new name and tell us what you're doing.
Okay. What do we got? Big Ben. Big Ben, there we go. So we are overachievers because we don't have this thing here. We just have paper, so I'll read it off to you. So we have the three counties. We're going to start north to south. The northern one is Gaston County. So we recently put kind of an outpost there in that particular county because we know there is a large urgency of people needing the resources. So we set it up, and this was a great conversation here because we know there's a great need, but nobody is coming to our outpost so we can provide services. And what was brought to our attention in regards to food and resources is, well, one is language barrier. A lot of people are immigrants, things like that. They're working in the farms and things of that nature. People need the food, people need the resources, but since they are working, they're working class, they're not available. They don't get off work until after we're closed. So it's kind of like, hey, we're here to help you, but we're gone by 5 o'clock, and they get off at 6, you know? So that is some logistics we have to, especially when we get back home, to start conversations and to really, how can we meet that need in meeting to the people and not on their time, but not necessarily on our time. That's gonna be a big challenge because our offices are only from, 9 to 5, whatever. So but we have to do it on our time, but we need to do it on their time. So that's some logistics we have to get conversations with for Gaston County. For Leon County, which is where Tallahassee, the city of Tallahassee is in, there are a lot of agencies. I mean, it's like Starbucks, they're on every corner. It sounds like you now.
I know,
Yeah.
that's good.
But, there's a lot of agencies, but it's like,
Mentoring.
they're on their own, this is what we're doing, I want the stats, no, I want the stats, that's, there's some resistance, and so it's starting the conversations to actually really working together. For example, with the moratorium that's been lifted, we're getting people in our offices with $1,000, $2,000 rent or whatever that may be, and we can only help with a small fraction of that. But working with another agency, maybe we could build on that, so we can help people so they can keep that, the roof over their heads, and those resources. So it's working with them. One of the things was the sheriff's department there in Leon County, they're doing something called All In, and also what that is really investing into the young people as well, and getting them involved into other things rather than the worldly recreational things. And so getting involved with them as well. And then the southern county, the coastal county, McCullough County, and that is, it was youth. There is nothing for the youth, other than, I guess, fishing. But after a while, they get tired of bored and fishing, so they go do drugs and whatever they're not supposed to be doing. So it's youth development, going down to that county and giving them, that they're wanted. Some of these youth are not wanted, but giving them know that they're loved, they're wanted, you're important, that kind of mentality to them. So.
Are there any facilities that are empty in the county that could be fitted out for youth centers or?
No, that's the other problem. We have a community center that basically is an all-purpose facility. They actually have offices for youth programs, like our Parks and Recs have offices in there. My wife, who heads up the 4-H program for the county, uses it for all our summer camps. People rent it out for like birthday parties or other, community events, fundraising events, but there's nothing that would be something that could be targeted. And there's been talks about people saying, oh, we should build a bowling alley or like a family fun center that would be like mini golf, bowling, a skating rink. And the problem is all that is private business. That isn't nothing the county controls. So.
Yeah.
The schools be used?
Yes, my wife actually went after a grant for an after-school program because if you know anything about McCullough County, we have an area called Panacea, and it's very poor people in the county, lower income there. It's a fishing community, and they had a problem with basically parents are working, trying to make ends meet, so no one's home, so no one's there for after school, so they saw a need. She didn't get the grant, but the county came through and actually funded an after-school program run through the 4-H program to have an after-school Monday through Friday for kids. That started this year. So
is that targeted a certain age, or is it just?
I want to say it's elementary school, maybe some middle school, not high school though.
Right. Where's your big problem?
Yeah.
We're actually going to be in conversation with her wife when we get back, and having that conversation.
But after-school programs, particularly with COVID, I'm seeing much more attention given to after-school, because kids they're online, they need a place to do homework, they need, than even some of the early reading programs, because we can't get to school. And so I really think the after-school thing is a real avenue to explore. And maybe as a consortium, one church can't pull it off, but maybe all of the churches in the area could, somehow. And the churches have facilities.
Well, that's what I actually
For
listed,
youth, you know?
I listed as, not only champions, but also as resources were the churches, because every single one of them's got youth groups.
Yeah.
Every single one of them has
Yeah.
facilities.
Right.
Every single one of them wants their kids to stay out of trouble and do the right thing. So they all run vacation Bible school programs in the summertime. So we have the resources, we
Yes.
just need to put it all together.
Yeah, and get them up to speed on what they really need to do for kids, not just a church program. Because kids are going to go that, you know, figure out something that's really intriguing.
So Reggie, when you asked, are there facilities, I'm thinking of an unused school building.
Right.
Sometimes school,
Or a
you know,
used school
sometimes census changes in the school district and they'll put a building out of use. Sometimes they'll actually put that building up for sale at a fire sale cost.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's a possibility. Another thing I guess I'd look at, as you're talking about that, is how has this been done in other places with helping churches work together on something like this? There was a group on Cape Cod. They watched the Global Leadership Summit with Willow Creek, and some of them actually went to it. They came back and they said, man, we'll never have a Willow Creek-sized church in Cape Cod. And the pastors were meeting together. They said, yeah, but what would happen if we began to share our facilities with one another and with our communities? We would have more facilities than they have at Willow Creek.
Right.
And they started to do that, and it became, you know, well known throughout the Cape that the churches were for the community. And so that, you know, there's lots of ways you can begin to skin this cat and begin to get the facilities you might need in a decentralized way
Yeah.
that help you get out to those folks in other counties. Now, I had a question I didn't hear in what you were saying, stories necessarily of the urgency of the issue that might grab somebody. And I wondered, did you all talk a little bit about how do we develop that sense of urgency? Or is there already a sense of urgency and people are ready to move to that next level of resources and champions?
I think there's a sense of urgency in all those counties. It's,
Yeah.
you know, engaging those conversations, you know, really when we get I guess, the small groups back in our community, a big group back in our community, really tapping into those resources. So there is a sense of urgency of, you know, people needing food in Gaston County and they're working, they can't get it. How do we get that to them? Talking to, you know, it was mentioned, Gaston County Health Council, talking to them, getting logistics of getting food to people who need it. And then with Leon County, talking, you know, getting a meeting together with some of the nonprofit agencies. Also, the Sheriff's Department is kind of like really heading that up of, you know, also with youth development, things like that. So bringing them to the table and on how to tap into those resources.
Yeah. I think you could probably really pick up on this notion of telling good stories.
Yeah.
You know, putting a date, a time, a place, a person, and really putting a face on hunger. If feeding is the main thing. You know, what happens when, you know, Jane Smith and her kids don't have enough to eat in their house? What happens to the kids' future? They don't get educated well. They don't read by the end of third grade. They end up in a very difficult spot in terms of, you know, maybe having to move somewhere. And if they're constantly shifting and moving, are they developing the kind of stability a family needs to really survive? And, you know, you somehow really develop some good stories that create a sense of, oh my gosh, tug on people's heartstrings. To get them to say, I'll volunteer after work to make sure these people are fed.
Right.
You know, I don't know, just tossing something out here.
Is there something that you're burning to say?
No, I
Yeah.
was just,
Okay.
I was just saying.
I didn't want to cut you off.
I was standing here looking for it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Thank you.
Keep something beautiful. All right. Thank you for your work today. You leaned into the conversation, and that's what makes it worthwhile. And
the ideas that you're generating and the relationships with each other and all, it's really great. Tomorrow will be another day of very similar energy, but really, it takes you to bring the energy to the room. So I
Yes.
appreciate, you're not doing it for us, but all I'm doing is saying thank you for leaning in. And certainly appreciate all the work that Angela's done to get us ready for today and to help us with all of our work through the day, as well as the manager picking up a brand new assignment moving in here like two days ago, and just in June and picking up a program of this size, and his leaning into this. So way to go, everybody. And Henry, you want to get us out of here today? I don't know how to get out of the hospital room sometimes. Just say let's pray or something.
I just want to, one thing, I know some of you asked about the Wi-Fi. Here, she has it for you.
It's too late.
Here, we can give it to you.
Give us the Wi-Fi.
I'm not sure to give him this OKTY at BR 2014. So you get that, you should be able to.
I think it's at.
That's why I said at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I said OKTY at BR 2014. Back good? All right, the tour is gonna be, I think it's gonna be gonna happen now, for those that are going. All right, then dinner is gonna be at 6 o'clock, in the same place we were.
Same
Then-
food.
I don't know about same food.
There was enough there for dinner.
There was enough there for dinner. But then the evening is yours, of course, relax and just soak in the information that you've gotten. I encourage